You know that now that I think about it, if I'm out of stuff to spend souls on, in a way, I'm like free. I'm free to become a little suicide boy. That's a distressing way to put it. But I mean, like, let's see, unlimited use, smoldering mace, hollowed sword. Yeah, that's enough of playing with that thing. It's just worse. Both because it's so slow and awkward, even though it is a big weapon, but also it's just like, this one's upgraded to level 5 and that one's not, and like, that is the trap of having upgrade systems in these games, is that like, oopsie. The trap of having upgrade systems in these games is just the fact that, like, obviously you want to make one of your weapons level 5 as fast as possible, but then like, if there's not just like a ton of resources, then are you really going to make any of your other weapons level 5 in a reasonable time? So then you pretty much just get stuck using one weapon the entire playthrough, because, you know, how likely are you to use any of the other weapons? There's some of that with the shells too. I already talked about how I take issue with the fact that this particular shell... Hello. Hello. This particular shell, I think, is just the clear winner because hardening is the core mechanic of the game, and it's the one that's good at hardening, so pretty easy choice, honestly. But also, there's the fact that, like, you level up shells, so really quickly you're gonna have one shell that has all your resources invested into it, and the other ones won't. I don't know. I guess it's like New Game Plus eventually. It's just more options. But I feel like if you're gonna have a game called Mortal Shell where it's like, you can hot swap between different bodies, it feels like the core interest of that would be the idea that different bodies would be better suited for different situations, and so you'd actually would want to hot swap them like Mega Man powers. And be like, haha, this one would be good for this level, and that one would be for that level, and like you'd like assess the threat and switch. That's a lot of fucking archers. Alright, we'll get back to that thought process in a moment after I survive this or not. Fuck. Unnecessary game. Jesus. Alright, we're done. The way back didn't take that long, actually, because this is the elevator that takes me to the beginning of the fortress, the structure. Oh my god, I Wile E. Coyote'd that shit. I don't know. This game's interesting enough that it makes my brain start firing off ideas, and I start like brainstorming the better game, or at least what I would think, a game that I would like more based on the ideas that it has. Because I'm like, oh, these are some cool ideas, but I kind of want them to better epitomize what I think is interesting about them, because they kind of didn't. Because there was an existing, because this game kind of exaggerates an existing problem that already had somewhat with Dark Souls, which is that as you explore, your reward is a bunch of unique items, either cool, immediately applicable stuff like upgrades to your Estus flask, or more niche, but like filling things out sort of way rewards, which is like when you get like, here's my 50 different weapons and so on like that, and like all the different weapons have like different move sets and like ranges and stat scaling and so on, and you kind of like figure out which ones are your favorites and so on. And when you do that, it's cool to have all those weapons and to have those weapons as a reward for all your exploring. But an issue is that, yeah, you upgrade a weapon or two, and you're like, well, I put a lot of resources into upgrading these weapons. I'm not sure how badly I want to go get a new weapon now. Ah, this path's closed. That changes things a bit. You're like, I don't know if I want to abandon my weapon I've been upgrading all game in order to upgrade these later weapons. And so it does kind of cause that like sunk cost problem, except it's not really, in that case, it's not really a fallacy, because you literally do have a finite number of resources per playthrough, and you've invested a bunch of them into this particular weapon, so are you sure you want to start a new weapon? And this has that with the shells and the weapons too. But it's weird because they made the leveling system relatively brief and not all that complicated. In part, perhaps, because of the fact that the game itself isn't very long. Like, it's pretty quick. So I kind of think that maybe they shouldn't have done that at all.
Perhaps it's time to make some.
There we go. Just delete that guy. Once you max out a character, you no longer drink from the sap or whatever, or the tar, the tap, whatever. The thing she called it. You no longer drink, so the screen no longer turns white. And people were complaining about the screen turning bright white because they're like watching these videos in the dark on their big TV or whatever, and the whole screen turns completely white. Like, that's not the best life experience on their end, which that makes sense. The fact that it doesn't do that now is also funny, just because it instantly and everyone just blinks into a reset without the whole, like, you set it up on fire, the reset animation, which is a little weird. All right, let's get back to that chained guy. That was easier to escape than I thought it would be. That one spot with like the 50 archers that was worrying. But I kind of think they should have, even to further set this game apart from Dark Souls maybe, and embrace what was interesting about it. Maybe this game just shouldn't have RPG elements. Maybe it should just be an action game, and all you do is unlock new abilities and new characters and new weapons, like Mega Man. Because that's kind of, as much, it's weird to keep saying Mega Man all the time, and I don't even really like Mega Man that much, but I can like recognize what it is and what it does. And like, I can't help but just think like, okay, that's the game where your character changes color, and it's like, I'm using the lightning power now. My normal attack's been replaced by this lightning attack, and it uses up this energy meter, and then you run out. And then like, oh, now I'll use my wind attack, and like, you get one from each boss fight. And so you have this growing selection of weapons, and experienced players or people that can just guess well, based on knowing how the games work, will specifically figure out like an order to kill the bosses in, where they keep getting the weakness to the next boss, and so they always have the thing that they can use to make the next fight easier. And so there's like strategizing and planning built into that aspect. That's all neat. So looks like the mist is back. So I kind of feel like maybe you should just be collecting shells and weapons in this game that just come out fully formed as being their final stats. And at most, you could collect new abilities for them over time, the way you do right now. Like, oh, you got the item that gives you the spike attack. Oh god. Oh god. No. Oh no. Fuck you. Like, getting new abilities is fine, but I think maybe you should just not upgrade these abilities. Maybe I think you shouldn't get stronger over time. Because the game is so short that like, there's not enough time to do much of a power ramp. There's only a handful of bosses in like the entire game. So there isn't really like a huge progression curve in the first place. Oh fuck. So the game would potentially benefit from just being carefully balanced instead. I actually am having trouble remembering which way to go to get back to Firelink. Ooh. I think I'm close-ish. Because then you'd at least, when you got all these powers, oh, this is the beginning of the game. Now I know where I am. Da 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 da. I guess I go this way? No. Yeah, it's up there. There's only so many shells and only so many sets of equipment, and the game's only so long. So you might as well embrace the variety of the idea that you'd be hot swapping between these and actually using them all consistently. So stripping progression would be good. Because then you could just actually use whatever's available to you without any limitations of like, but I haven't upgraded that one by putting hours and hours into farming for it, so I never found you. But I don't really care. You're not necessarily differentiated enough for me to value you. Because the starting armor is so good. Or starting character is so good. I don't know. I'm just thinking like what this could have been. I'm thinking about like a Devil May Cry style system where like in Devil May Cry 4 and 5 there's like a button you hold down, or like you press like the D-pad, and that lets you hot swap between all your different weapons as you have like weapons and stances, specifically as Dante in particular. You have like 4 stances and 4 weapons or something like that, and you can hot swap between them during combat. And in that game, some of it's for which ones comes down to which ones are actually useful moment to moment, but some of it's just like it would just be fun to use this right now, my crazy super Tony Hawk combo that I'm doing right now. But that kind of hot swap system could actually have a value to it, I guess, in a way that's a little bit like Neo, where that one has the stances that you can switch between on the fly. Like if you could switch between shells more easily, either hot swapping mid combat like in a flash, like boom, I'm instantly that new guy, or maybe like as a reasonably quick process between fights where you're like, okay, I think this character's gonna work better on this level, then you'd have more reason to switch between these characters. And then yeah, there already kind of is a system for that, like there's kind of buttons for that, but because the characters aren't created equal and you have to separately level up each one from scratch, like it's just such a process to do all that. But like I said before, also they're not necessarily fully differentiated enough to fully encourage the swapping you'd want, because they mostly seem to have stat differences. And admittedly, I haven't gotten to fully see every skill tree of every character necessarily, in order to see the depth of what they might have be special, what might be special about each one. Because this character's clearly got his thing going on. Although the other guy was just kind of tanky, and his abilities didn't stand out to me nearly as much, besides just the fact that he's harder to kill, and that's his main thing. I don't know. It would take a while to come up with a different like trajectory for this whole thing. I don't know. One of the responses people give sometimes is stop talking about what a game isn't and embrace what it is and stuff like that. But what it is a series of interesting ideas that I don't think are fully realized. So like that's not really how anything works. Like I am talking about what it is, but what it is kind of disappointing in certain ways. Like it's impressive in certain ways and disappointing in other ways, but it's disappointing in an interesting way that makes me think about what it could have been. Whereas other games are just bad. There's other games I play that are just bad, and I'm like, oh, be good instead. This game's like all right, but compromised in a lot of ways, and it's probably because it's a pretty indie project, and maybe one of the ideas here is that maybe them committing so hard to looking this pretty might have been a little rough for this game being able to go as far as it could have. Like I'm wondering, like, because I don't know exactly how resource management and distribution goes and all that, but like if this game looked like Ashen, for example, would there have been more boss fights? Would there have been more levels? And a few more tricks and mechanics and so on? Because if that's a trade I can make, then I'll take that trade every time. Because like this game looking like a faithful Dark Souls game visually or whatever is like kind of neat, but I pretty much just remember the gameplay experience of games and what makes them interesting, and not what they look like most of the time. And then what they look like is usually more of a compliment. So if that, yeah, like, I mean, I'm always an advocate for that. That was the idea, like, fuck graphics. I like art direction. I mean, I love me some art, so I want games to look good. But the fidelity is not necessarily the part I care about, like it being like highly detailed with all the subsurface scattering and other big words that refer to minor flourishes that I barely notice because everything's in motion, and oh my god, all that matters is how much stamina I have and how long my animation takes, and oh my god, they're coming for me. And all that stuff. I don't know. This guy's real spooky though. This guy's cool. But yeah, like I think this is it. Because they gave me a structural hint about how long the game was going to be, and I've now gotten them all. So like it's probably time for the ending, and that's that's rough, because then you're thinking like, okay, so there's like, looking at these walls, like, so there's 4 weapons, right? There's 4 weapons and there's 4 shells. Okay. How long's the game? This is about 4 boss fights. What? Wait, what? Like, this level of variety, which well, the weapons have variety to them, the shells, I'm not sure they have the variety I would hope for, but, you know, I haven't gotten to fully explore them. You would think that the size of the campaign would support experimenting with all these different shells and having the time to like level all of them up and getting a real feel for which ones are good and which ones are bad and so on. But like, the game's also obtuse and non-linear, and you can go anywhere in any order. So like, you don't have to unlock the shells to unlock that. That would have been one thing, is maybe you should have had to unlock the shell in order to unlock the level. Like, you play as this guy in the opening forest. What if I had to unlock the crown guy in order to unlock the level I just played? And like, what if each of those shells was tied to one of those levels? So at least you had to find them first, and then you could use that character to open the door. Like, each of them have, and that would tie into the narrative, because they're all supposed to be people, and like they're specifically saying like a man is not just a shell, which is saying that like they have a mind and a history and so on. What if unlocking their history and potential and memories is how you figure out how to access each level, and otherwise you can't access them? Like, that would make the shells matter more, both in the narrative and the mechanics, and also ensure that you find them, and then you'd have more incentive to find them, even if they're maybe not as mechanically diverse and so on. And so then you at least have all the shells, but then you still have the rough thing, which is that this game has relatively little content. So at most you can play that shell for that one level, and during that one level you'll fight about 3 enemies over and over again in slightly different contexts, but sometimes just the same context over and over again, and then 1 boss fight, and maybe a mid boss in the form of Grisha showing up again, but mostly just 1 boss fight. And then you immediately are like, okay, let's get a new shell and do a new level. It's like, I'm trying to imagine a playthrough where you really get a good amount of time in with each of these shells, and I'm not really sure it exists. The most you can do is 1 level per shell. So explore the forest as this guy, then unlock a new shell and beat the fire level, then unlock a new shell and beat the ice level, and then unlock a new shell and beat the narthex, whatever it was called, which apparently according to Bird is a real word, but I've never heard it before and it sounds made up. But like, those levels aren't super long, so I don't know. I don't know. I think in my inexperienced outsider perspective, I kind of get the feeling that the fidelity of this game might have held it back. Like, the fact that it's so high detailed and expensive looking, like, that may have made it so there's just not enough game. And I figure they probably ran out of money and time. They probably had plans for more, but there's just a handful of boss fights. And I have my other complaint from last episode where I'm like, these boss fights aren't necessarily good enough to hold a game together necessarily. I'm mostly unimpressed by these boss fights. I might have a better respect for how tough they are and their movesets and having to learn them and so on if this mechanic wasn't in the game. But this mechanic actually makes them way easier, because you can just harden to nullify attacks, and then you kind of just fall into the same pattern over and over again with every boss. So that and the same strategy works against every boss fight so far, so I don't really have to ever learn and change really. So that's weird. I got some real mixed feelings about that. It's a cool mechanic, but I don't know. I think that the boss fights don't necessarily reflect this mechanic. It feels like the boss fights themselves are just regular Souls-like bosses, but they made a new mechanic that's not in all the Souls-likes, and then didn't necessarily change the bosses to reflect the new mechanic. That is, you know, if anything, they might have changed it in that these bosses don't always have openings for you to comfortably swing at them in. They might have used this as an excuse to just not have to have reliable openings, perhaps. I'm not sure. But it's rough. I don't know. It's an interesting experiment, and it's always good to see a Souls-like experiment and try to take things in different directions. But I'm not sure that it's a successful one. But I'd be interested in seeing what they do next as a company. Although I'd be a little worried that maybe they have a reputation now for making games that look like this, and so maybe they'll be tied to making games that look like this, and then potentially running out of money and budget and time because everything has to look shiny and beautiful and foggy, and like they nailed that part. But if like an indie company trying to pull off AAA production values means that they're going to have way less game. Like a AAA company can make a game look like this and then make it as long as God of War, which was very long, or The Last of Us 2, and so on. Like these are very long games that look kind of like this, and like that's because of the insane nightmare budgets tied to that stuff. And more indie projects are often better off going a little journey going a little bit in the journey direction. Get some stylized visuals and some nice colors and work with that. But that's my amateur outsider perspective on that shit. I don't know. I just want this game. I want this game to be more, because it's cool. But I'm like, now that I'm reaching the end of the journey, I'm just like, There's definitely a feeling of like, that's it, and that kind of bums me out. But it's a weird that's it, because it's mostly like this game had promise the whole time, and it's not necessarily a promise that it fulfilled. In part because like the boss fights are like, there's all that, like the zones themselves seem neat, but they only have like 3 enemies, and the boss fights seem neat, but then I fight them and they just crumple. Probably the coolest one is that they had a knight that ice skates, which is, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's a pretty fun idea.
Who would have thought one so naive could endure such hardship to deliver this final plan? Yes, it is I who will ascend, and not those who are worshipped. Hand it over, and claim the honor to witness what's true. Stay back. I will not waste this divine gift. Yes. I feel my wings unfolding, body burgeoning, eyes opening, as if for the first time. So, this is how it feels to be chosen to reign above the rabble. Pitiful maggots, bowing and scraping before their gods. Their lives unraveling one thread at a time into a pile of utter meaninglessness. Fate favors those who act, be it in their own self-interest or otherwise. Come forth and bear witness to my ascension. Bask in my grandeur. It's time.
Oh, he's gone. Bask in my grandeur. So I was right. He is like, he's a problem. It's bad to let him out. Like they so heavily telegraph that he's a bad guy, and there's like reasons you might not want to free him. And he's probably the final boss fight. But you have to push past that feeling to unlock the parry mechanic, which admittedly I immediately stopped using because I cannot handle the idea of a parry that requires a resource. And it's not like silver bullets from Bloodborne where you can have like 20 of them or way more than of them, like 80 or whatever. You can just keep buying some. It's a meter I slowly fill up in the corner of the screen that's kind of hard to see. Like it's a tiny thin meter I have to look all the way to the corner of the screen for and try to spot. And it refills really slowly. And if I even if I miss the parry, I lose it. Like that's that killed it hard for me. Like, parries are already hard to do in this genre. Having the parry be a finite resource that's only sometimes available just means that I have to check before I use it every single time, which not great for reaction times. You have to be planning on using the parry as opposed to using it reactively to be like, haha, I'll get this attack. Like, you have to specifically like pre-plan how many parry resources you've got, then use it accordingly after having memorized the enemy's moveset enough that you can do it. It's like, alright, well, I'm never healing that way. It's also like, you're gonna have trouble convincing me to try to heal via the most risky mechanic in the game where I'm the most likely to get hit, therefore taking damage instead of healing. It's like, alright, well, I guess we just don't have an Estus Flask in this game. I've just got my half moon grass here, or my crescent moon grass, and 2 lives, and we're just gonna have to make that work most of the time. Oh no, I didn't finish becoming a loot master. He's getting pretty good. I gotta visit the shopkeeper and spend some tar since I've got all this tar. We're clearly not leveling up new suits at this rate. $10,000. Almost.
Shall we surely there's something you'll fancy amongst my collection.
I wonder if he eventually talks more if I, like, finish 8,000 for these tools, but I don't know where to use them. Like, I can finally afford these, but I have no idea where I would spend them. Huh. So I have all the quenching acid. These are farming resources. Huh? Out of stock. Oh, he runs out of that one. Somebody probably freaked out the first time I bought all those, and then it's like, well, why shouldn't you level up one of your suits? And I'm like, oh, fuck. I do regret buying these right before I switched to the crown guy, and I was like, oh, I could have bought more of his skills. But maybe I don't regret that, because I immediately stopped wanting to use that guy because he doesn't have my hardened mechanic. Like, I can't... You can't get me used to the specific, like, faster rate that this recharges at, and the fact that it blocks more attacks after it's done, and the fact that I get extra stamina when I use it. Like, that changes fundamentally how I play, and the whole pacing of the game, and how combat feels. And so then, like, if I lose all that, I'm just like, well, now I'm just worse, aren't I? This is just worse. Obviously. We're almost there. I just gotta cross it off my bucket list. Yeah, this game has so much promise. Everyone deserves a big ol' pat on the back for making something impressive. But at the same time, I think that the game just has a long way to go. It's just not there. Things can be impressive and also wildly disappointing at the same time. I forgot to pet the cat the last time, but don't worry, guys. I remembered. And I know the excuse always comes up, like, it's an indie company and they have limited resources and all that other stuff, and they can't compete with the big boys. And to some extent that's true, but I also think it's condescending to review all of their games like they're graded on a scale. Like, oh, that's very good. That's going on the fridge. Good boy. Good job, young man. Like, it's like, that's so fucking patronizing. Like, they're trying to make a game that actually competes with everybody else and people love and so on. They're not here to, like, get the participation award for adorable indie game that tried so hard despite how little money they had and only for so many people. Hey, we maxed it out. I wish that the atmosphere would drop out a bit when you play this so you can hear it better. There we go, I maxed it out, but the is really loud. And at the same time, an indie game being free from the, like, an indie game that doesn't have all those risks and so on is freed from some of the constraints. Because despite everything, all the excuses people make, indie games are my most interesting experiences every year, basically. Like, I love them. Every year there's like one AAA game I really like, and like a dozen indie games that I fall in love with. And like, it's because they don't have to sell 50 billion copies with their insane, projected revenue streams and goals to hit and so on, and they can make a profit with more modest sales, and they have to make a thinner budget stretch further. They get to do crazier ideas without the idea that like there's like some AAA producer telling them exactly what to do because market research says that this is what people like. You gotta force an open world crafting RPG system into your game that doesn't fit that, because that's what sells these days. Because every AAA game is slowly becoming the same third-person open world adventure with crafting and resource gathering and collectible nodes on the map and blah blah blah. Shadow of Tomb Raider Mortar. Other ones? Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking maybe the way that they've chased AAA so hard visually might be putting some of the constraints of AAA on them unnecessarily, when that's the point of being indie, is being free of those. All right, let's do this.
It's all wrong. The visions have dissolved into darkness. There is no ascension. Only an endless abyss, growing deeper and deeper as I stretch my wings uselessly. I've fallen into a sea of shadows. I remember warmth and light, but even that is fading. The visions weren't for me. They were for you. Are you not meant for this blighted place after all? But why should you get to escape while the rest of us remain mired in this miserable pit? It's senseless, this injustice. If I can't ascend, neither will you. No one will.
Oh. Whoop! You got a lot of health. Oh shit. Oh, what happened? I lost my lock on, so I couldn't tell where he was. What's up, dudes? Whoop. Oh, there's dudes. How much dudes? Huh! A few dudes. Oh god, there's a lot of dudes. Huh! How much dudes? Whoop. There's too much dudes. There we go. Is that all the dudes? I can't tell. Nope. I made it. I think dodge spamming might make you invulnerable. Like, period. Oh, my stamina. Nope. Ouchies. That's a good camera right there. It's not. It's definitely a joke. They need that zoomed out camera that some of the Souls games show during big boss fights. Because I can't, this is not a good camera. Okay. Woo, rude. What's up? Da 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 da. What's happening? Where's he gonna land? On me. Okay, gotcha. That's what I figured. Oh, he hit me. Ah! That's abusable. A lot of dudes. Swing. Ow. That was the wrong button, but okay. I should have dodged like always. Why can't I use a resolve? Oh, I ran out of resolve. When did that happen? Oh, my rats consume resolve. I forgot. No. What's up? Oh. What's going on over there? What's going on? What's going on over here? I don't want to go in there. What? They fucking wait, are they healing him? They're healing. Not very much though. But still, I don't want to go in that hole. That's bad. It's dangerous. I'm sure that kills me. There's no way that doesn't kill me. Fuck, he's healing though. What the fuck? Dude, you're so easy. You have to cheat now? Oh, I'm not. I don't like this hole. I think they're basically healing him like one attack's worth, or maybe hopefully not one combo's worth. Fuck, he's back up to half. Shit. Are you dashing? Yep. Nope. Fuck. I used up my resources. No. I'm fucking up right now. Just take a chill pill for a moment. Eat some rats. You know, like normal people do. Why didn't I dodge that? Why did I waste my frames? Camera, chill. I don't know. How did I just missed him completely. Whoop. Is your head stuck? That's adorable. What? That dodge didn't work out. Shit. I should just stick with my frames. Ah, camera. Crap. Oh, it didn't hurt me though. I guess it makes me vulnerable, but he already hit me, or already attacked me. All right. He seems to just spend most of the fight being out of attack range now, which is kind of annoying, but not much of a threat. Ah. No! Do it! Do it! God damn it. Pissing me off, game. I press LB and RB at the same time, that means do the thing. Or does it require two? Maybe it requires two. That's the problem with telling me, like, it requires some resolve, or moderate resolve, or lots of resolve. I'm like, tell me the bar count, you fuck. What is it? What does some mean? I genuinely don't know what the requirement is for my own abilities, which is not good. I should definitely know how much it costs to do an attack. And not have to, like, look it up online. Oh. How did I miss him? Whoop. Oh, I don't have harden. I'm fucking up. Yeah, let's... Oh! Fuck! I only looked away for a second. Attack! God fucking damn it, this game. These bugs are fucking infuriating. Where my characters won't attack. Attack! God damn it. There we go, Jesus. I know what to do, but the characters doesn't work sometimes, and I can't do anything about that. Okay, I used up my harden, careful. I need to not be locked on those parts. Ow. Unsuccessful dodge. Uh-oh. I fucked that one up. You've got a lot of HPs, don't ya? Ah, I missed it. Oh, now he's out of range. He's almost dead. I haven't even died yet. But I know I've eaten like 12 of these things. Don't be locked on. I've learned my lesson. There we go. Come back here. Can you stop running away? It's like half the reason you're still alive. I mean, even though I do it, but I'm the player. I'm real. Nope. Don't be greedy, but also finish the fight, please. Ow. There we go. First try. Hello, achievement.
Over and over. Am I now to witness your ascension? Or will you shepherd me across the threshold? I see nothing now. Nothing at all.
I kind of thought the helm was going to come off before the boss fight. Upon extracting Dark Father's gland, you are given the choice to ascend. Ascension ends your time in the mortal realm. You will ascend and begin again in Fulgrim in New Game Plus mode. Should you choose not to ascend, your save data will remain intact and you will return to Fulgrim. Let's do it. Show me the ending. What are these achievement notifications that suddenly started happening? Better find those and turn them off. And there we go. Yeah, I know it seems like I'm really down on the thing because I'm sitting here doing these long rants about it and so on, but it's just like I can't not think through. I gotta finish the thoughts. Like, it starts these thoughts in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, that can go there, and like, oh. And I can just see, like, really, like, I can see stuff that's, like, really worth working with here, but then it's just not, I just don't like this game very much. But I'm so ready to like it. It's such a weird mixed feeling. I don't want to damn this game that hard by mentioning Yik or Y2K, a postmodern RPG, but it's a little bit like that, where I'm like, oh my god, look at this art. Like Y2K, that game, that art style and the music and like a lot of the visuals and a lot of the stuff that it's set up to do seem so neat. But then that game is ruined by like the most insufferably just annoying combat system where you have to do these long mini games every single fight, and there's just so much fighting, and it's just the same mini games over and over again. It's just not interesting, and mostly just irritating and annoying, and makes you like fatiguing. And like the game has writing issues, and the characters are insufferable, and it's just like, oh man, yeah, dang. Because I looked at Y2K and I'm like, first glance, you're like, that's the kind of visuals and so on where I'm like, this might be like a game of the year or something. Like I might really fall in love with this one, and then I'm like, oh no. And this one is a little like that, but much less severe on the negatives. But it's like, oh man, Mortal Shell, I can't wait to play that game. That's gonna be like, that could seriously be like the best Souls-like so far. Then I hop in and I'm like, nah. The good news is I probably like this game more than Lords of the Fallen, which was the first Souls-like outing by Deck 52, I think they're called. Or, shit, Spiders or Cyanide or something. I don't remember. I think it's Deck 52. I'm forgetting right now. And they went on to make The Surge and The Surge 2, and like honestly, like even 3 games deep, they're making games that I'm like, The Surge 2 is like, this is kind of okay, but I don't love it. So this game's got a decent starting compared to that company. But yeah, I think the reigning champs for me, it's hard because I have to remember so many different games, but I think the reigning champs for me of Souls-likes might still be Salt and Sanctuary and Neo, which both have their own issues. Salt and Sanctuary, much fewer. Honestly, Salt and Sanctuary is pretty solid. It has some like technical problems here and there and a few moments where the game kind of falls apart a little bit, but it's a really well done 2D Souls-like, which kind of speaks to the quality of like if you do a 2D style Souls-like, you can kind of like do a really good job with less, because that, you want to talk about indie, like the Ska Studios, the creators of Salt and Sanctuary and Dishwasher, Dead Samurai, and Charlie Murder. It was one guy, James Silva, and now it's 2 people. That's it. Like, it's 2 people. Like, Salt and Sanctuary is such an indie project, and it still might be the reigning champ of really good Souls-likes, because all these other ones just have so many glaring flaws that I can't look past. And then Neo is just, it's just a really solid combat game. It does a lot right. Only some of the levels are well designed, and some of the levels are boring because it's got like blobby intestinal hallway cave levels as opposed to some of the really cool ones, like that one fucking castle that turns upside down or whatever the fuck was happening there. There's some really cool ones in that game. And Neo suffers from this game's problem of just not having enough enemies for its length. The thing is that in this game's case, I can kind of get why it happened, because they wanted to have like a certain amount of length, because otherwise all the Steam reviews would be like, it's only 2 hours long and this makes me angry. If they just diluted it down to, I mean, if they just trimmed it down to its like best content and didn't like dilute it with a bunch of like extended segments of you fighting the same enemies over again, then like all the Steam reviews would be mad about that, because Steam reviews are full of people's shit taste. Fuck them. I hate it when people complain about a game being too short when the game's well paced and doesn't waste your time and uses ideas well and like is well designed and so on, and doesn't just like pad it out by repeating its ideas over and over again. Some games are just genuinely short because they just didn't have much going on, but some games are just like short because like they nailed it. So I can definitely see like why they'd pad it out in an act of self-defense practically, and because they probably like built out this skeleton of a campaign and expected to fill it with more stuff, and then kind of ended up where they ended up because like that's what we've got. Whereas Neo, it's like that game had a lot of content. It had plenty content, but then they were like, what if you had to play every level like 4 times for no reason? It's like, oh, they won't notice if you play if you just beat the level forward, but what if you beat it backwards? Ooh. And then it was like, well, that's our 2 ideas, forward and backwards. What else can we do? I don't know, like a 3rd run, slightly different enemy placements. I'm like, what? Again? Some of those levels you beat like 3 or 4 times. And the first boss fight of Neo, like, you want to talk about how like you fight Grisha in this game like 3 times, twice. At least I think I fought Grisha twice as a beast and once as an imprisoned beast with the helmet and everything. Fucking Neo, you fight the first boss fight like 10 times, sometimes twice at a time, and it's like, okay, come on, guys. And it's not like, oh, it's a normal enemy now. It's like, no, it's a boss fight each time, but they just keep doing it again. I'm like, but I've done it before, Neo. Stop this. You've made a pretty solid Souls-like with some good levels and some good enemies and a bunch of fun movesets. Why is like 50% of this content filler when there was already enough content for a real game here? I'm so frustrated that happened, but despite that glaring flaw, it's probably still like top 3 Souls-likes, by which I don't count Bloodborne or Sekiro, because I don't count, like, I would say they're Souls-likes technically, but they're by From Software, so, you know, obviously Bloodborne is the best Souls-like. If you want to count anything that's not called Dark Souls or Demon Souls, but is like them, then Bloodborne's the best Souls-like, but that's just the same company making a spin-off. But yeah, I don't know, I'll be here, I'll keep trekking away. I like ambition. I like people trying to do things, and I like ranting about what I see as the failures of those things and like engaging in this whole process. It's not malicious. I'm not being a dick for fun. That's not the point of any of this. It's criticizing stuff because you love it. It's like how I play RPGs constantly. And my favorite kind of RPG specifically is Western RPGs, aka the ones I see as real RPGs, the ones where you roleplay at all, as opposed to JRPGs where you just level up. And that's like, it's like, you level up in Shadow of Mordor, is that a JRPG? But like, the whole thing is that like they're trying the impossible task of making D&D happen in a video game, which you can't do. But like, they keep trying harder and harder in many cases, although lately it's more indie. Aside from CD Projekt Red, because most of the AAA RPG developers just got gutted by, they got bought up by AAA publishers and gutted and murdered and forced to make multiplayer shooters. Wow, I love the games industry. So that just makes it all the more beleaguered of an attempt, because it's like you're trying to make D&D in a video game with all those different choices and possibilities and logic gates and all this other shit. And all the people that have the most resources have been basically murdered, so they can't do it. So all the people with the least resources, a bunch of indie and AA studios, they got to pick up the mantle and keep the RPG genre alive. And so like, I'll keep playing these games, those games, and I'll be keeping like, and here's all the things that went wrong with this, because there will always be something, because the task that they're setting out to do is impossible, but some of them can make something so good in the process of trying to chase that perfect goal. Not that D&D is perfect, but like that idea of a tabletop role-playing game where you can just do anything, and wow, the idea, because like there's nothing cooler than playing a tabletop role-playing game and having this aha moment and thinking of a solution and being like, oh fuck, can that be the thing that I can do? Or making a big character choice, of course, where you're like, no, this is the choice I'm making right now. And like in a game like Wasteland 3, which we've played recently, the game just fucking collapses. Like, oh, fuck this character, I'm killing this character. It says on the tin, in all these Wasteland games, you can just kill a character, any character you want, and I don't normally do that, because I'm like, the content, let's talk to everybody. Fuck this guy, we're killing him. And then Wasteland 3 just fell apart, and like 3 entire zones had like no story, because that one character was the entire story. I'm like, oh, see, that's disappointing. It's like, one, being able to kill anyone anytime is a D&D mechanic. We're like, yeah, look at that, see, I did it. Like, I should be able to just do that. But the number of variables you have to account for, and also not just for respecting that you killed the character, but also making the experience interesting is hard. Because then you have to be like, okay, they killed that character. What do we do in these zones if that character's not there to make it not fucking boring? And they didn't address that. Instead, it was just like, okay, there's multiple zones where, all right, get ready to just do combat for 9 hours straight, because there's no story left for this entire part of the game. It's like, well, that's not good. You shouldn't have the kill everybody mechanic if the only thing it does is make the game shittier. Like, that freedom is punished instead of rewarded. But speaking of games that do that, fucking From Software games, the Dark Souls games, that's one of the biggest RPG mechanics in those games, is that not only do there are a bunch of story, not only are there all those NPC storylines that you can pass or fail at various stages, but also make choices during those things to put them in different directions. But you can also murder basically every NPC in a From Software game. It's like, that actually sets them apart from JRPGs. Like, From Software games like Bloodborne and the Dark Souls games and so on, like, they have quest lines with multiple branching paths. You can blink and you miss them because they're not shoved in your face, and you can not even know they're there. But there's actually some role-playing choices in there. Like, you can specifically be, and there's a feature in like every single game where you can be like, this guy's just pretty fucking skeevy. I just set him free, but like, I don't know about that. And then you can just beat him to death with your sword, and then he's gone. And then he doesn't do the skeevy thing, if you were right about that. And it's like, huh. And unlike some of these other games, and it's partly because in that particular game, the side quests are relatively sidelined as far as content goes, so they can't fuck up the main campaign of you just doing levels and fighting bosses. But it means that you get to embrace all the consequences. Every ending of those storylines feels good, because they don't punish you for making particular choices by making the entire game boring now. I don't know, this is just been a big long rant. I love Souls-likes and Dark Souls games, and I love Western RPGs, and I'm just gonna keep covering them. And me going on long rants during all these different games doesn't instantly mean that it's the worst game ever or anything. You'll know. You'll know when it's the worst game ever. That's a different level. That's a different fucking volume level. I'll see you guys next time. I got such a big backlog of Souls-likes. I might just play a lot of Souls-likes, guys. I'm sorry if you get bored of that. But this channel might become like VR and Souls-likes for a bit, because I have a big backlog of Souls-likes I've been falling behind on for a long time. I might keep trying to play those just to get more progress there. And also, I just got VR, so obviously I want to use that. So that might be my emphasis for a bit. Except for the classic slot, which can't be either of those, obviously. There aren't a lot of old Souls-likes. There's old games by From Software, but that Souls-like level varies. Do you have new dialogue before I leave?
Pray, what wayward spirit beckons? Oh, it's you. Welcome back, foundling. Yes, it's all happening again. This is the burden of immortality. Toil without end. Our spirits fragmented by the profane eternities. But there's comfort, even a certain pleasure in ritual. Where were we? Oh, yes. Sip this and you'll see. Yes, taste the truth.
And oh, something new? Wasn't there only 2 rows before and now there's 3, or am I imagining that? It might be those things full of money. The tar. Not sure if anything else is new. Oh well. So yeah, final boss is relatively easy. Maybe it's because I abused this mechanic, but they're the ones that put it in the game, so it's not really abusing anything, it's just a core mechanic. There's just like all this, or cores, I'm overusing core, but they just made it so you can cheaply buy a bunch of rat things, so I'm like, alright. I have healing now, bro. These heal you way faster than that one does, so that's the good shit. I'll eat rats all day. The visual is horrifying, that he's just like fucking voring entire rats in the middle of a boss fight, just fucking swallowing them whole and apparently digesting them immediately, but that's what that brought us to. And I understand that one of the feedback comments will be like, but all the different shells and weapons are for New Game Plus, and it's like, I don't like that explanation. I don't like that explanation though. I don't like that. I accept that can be a value, and hey, I'm not gonna yuck on your yums, so if you're somebody who likes this game, that's fucking fine. And if you've played it 17 times into New Game 27 or whatever, that's not how math works, but if you played it into, if you're going to New Game Plus cycles forever and trying every suit and doing your like no hit run, like power to you. But given that it's called Mortal Shell, and like this feels like it's supposed to be like the title feature of this game, even though this is the real star of the show, the one that's like not even apparent until you start playing. I think New Game Plus will always be a niche mechanic in every game. There's always a handful of people, maybe even like a whole 10-20% that plays New Game Plus is like, oh yeah, let's play it over and over again. But generally speaking, I think most games should be judged by what the playthrough is like what a playthrough is like, not the long-term looping nature of like, I'm gonna play it forever, because I think that games aren't necessarily like, I don't think that's really the goal for games, generally speaking. And in fact, there are many games that I love that don't have New Game Plus, but you just play them again anyway because they're real fun. Like that's just a lot of like Bastion, and Bastion might have New Game Plus. I think it does actually, but like Bastion and Portal and other games that are just like really tight and well designed and replayable. They're replayable because the game itself is just mechanically satisfying and it's an all-time classic, and you'll come back every year and play it again because you want to, because it's one of your favorite games. And you don't need to mechanically support that idea necessarily. But if these ideas feel half fleshed out and like they don't really fit with a single playthrough, then that's where I'm like, I don't know if this works then. I don't know if this works, because like a playthrough, you want the first playthrough to be good, and then, but otherwise you just you're less likely to play it again. I don't know. I don't know. Visually, that boss fight was neat. He was kind of a cool character in some ways. Definitely Rom the vacuous spider. Like, a lot of that's going on there, but still neat. But that was pretty easy, because, yeah, this is the biggest boon and biggest flaw in this game, is the fact that this is a really neat mechanic, but it just makes every boss fight massively easier. That and this, like, holy fuck. The more I play this game, the more I realize that you're, like, dashing and dodging has so many iframes. Like, there's a tightness, there's a tension, there's like a tightrope like thing going on when I play like Dark Souls 2, and it's like, like I have to get the exact part of the attack swing right, or like this is the exact timing of the roll, and if I don't get the roll right, I am going to get hit, and it's going to be a bad time for me. And to some extent, like, I'm not entirely against the idea of a somewhat looser timing on that, just to like make it a little less stressful for people. Like, that's okay on some level. But I am noticing this is the harden of the dash might be so forgiving that I just kind of never had to learn the attack animations of anything, especially since you can spam it. Like, if you do this, I would genuinely be curious to know how long I'm vulnerable at any point. Like, am I vulnerable between the dash and the roll at all, or is the dash and roll one continuous chain of iframes for an entire, like, second? And how about, like, in between the roll and the next dash? Like, how long am I vulnerable? Because, like, I had some of those moments during boss fights where I'm like, okay, this is chaos. I'm just gonna mash B for a while. And, like, I was almost never punished for it. It feels like you're just continually invulnerable until you're out of stamina. Which, if you want to if that's the game you want, like, you can do that. But I'm like, that's fucking powerful. I'm definitely not used to that. I'm definitely used to having to try harder. Yeah, that's all of it, really. Just surprisingly easy, surprisingly brief, full of cool ideas, very pretty. See you next time.